The cry for help, the first sound, was not a sound at all. It was a trembling pulse, a rhythm in the dark, carried across the endless sea of stars. It was raw, desperate. It was not a message of pride, nor of politics. It was not a call for conquest or trade. It was a scream. An ancient relay station orbiting a dead red sun picked it up first. From there, the scream bounced outward, carried like an echo through abandoned satellites and forgotten outposts. It threaded its way across the great emptiness, faint but unbroken, until it finally reached the edge of human space. On a remote listening post orbiting Titan, a technician leaned back in his chair, half asleep, when the pulse struck his console. The monitors lit up. The screen tore through translation filters. "Help us. They are burning our cities. Fall children. Please, anyone, please." The technician froze. He had heard distress calls before, from stranded miners, from wrecked freighters. But this was different. The voice was not human. The tones were sharper, layered, like glass breaking underwater. And behind the words, behind the alien cry, was silence. A silence filled with smoke, fire, and death. Within days, the signal reached Earth. Politicians argued. Admirals debated. Some said it was a trap. Others said it wasn't humanity's problem. But among the noise of government chambers and military halls, one truth whispered louder than the rest. Someone had cried for help, and humanity had always answered cries for help. Commander, Elias Ward was not supposed to be here. He had left war behind. The scars on his arm, the nightmares that clawed at his sleep, those were enough reminders. He had buried his uniform in a box at the bottom of his ship and sworn he'd never wear it again. Now, as he stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching the alien planet of Kelrith grow larger on the view screen, he wondered how fate had pulled him back into fire. The call had come, and humanity had sent aid. Not a grand fleet, not armies. Just one ship, one medical frigate refitted with supplies, and a crew of volunteers. Ward had been pulled in as a last-minute advisor. He had tried to say no. He had failed. Beside him stood Koresh, a tall, silver-skinned Kelran with eyes like shards of ice. Koresh was the first Kelran to meet them when they entered orbit, and he had not stopped staring at Elias since. "You came," Koresh said, his voice soft, almost in disbelief. "We never thought." "Not." Truly, Elias adjusted his sleeve, hiding the scar beneath. "You cried for help. That's reason enough." Koresh turned his gaze back to the burning world below. Smoke curled through Kelrith's skies. Cities smoldered like dying embers. War machines, vast and terrible, marched across the land. "They will come for you too," Koresh warned. "The Dominion does not forgive kindness. If they see you aiding us, they will mark your people next." Elias studied him. "Then they'll regret picking that fight." For a moment, neither spoke. The weight of the burning world filled the silence. Then Koresh whispered, more to himself than to Elias, "You're not what I expected." The Dauntless broke orbit and descended into Hell. Ashes of Kelrith. Landing zone was Chaos. The Dauntless touched down on cracked stone as alarms blared. Smoke rolled across the ground. Alien civilians, Kelran of all ages, stumbled toward the human ship, their silver skin smeared with soot, their crystalline eyes wide with terror. Elias strode down the ramp first, his boots hitting scorched soil. Behind him, human medics and engineers rushed forward. They carried stretchers, water, food, medical packs. No weapons, at least, none in the open. Koresh followed close, his own people staring at him as if he had brought ghosts with him. The Kelran had once been a proud race, elegant and slow to anger. But now they looked broken, their movements jerky, their voices low. A child clung to Elias's leg. Her eyes glowed faintly blue in the ash, and she whispered something he didn't understand. Koresh translated. She says the firebirds came. They screamed, and then the sky burned. Elias knelt, resting a hand on the girl's shoulder. We're here now. We'll keep you safe. Koresh watched him closely. The words were simple, almost foolish, yet the child relaxed. She believed him. That unsettled Koresh more than anything, because words had never been enough against the Dominion. The Dominion struck that night. Sleek war machines descended from orbit, dropping like spears. Their soldiers, armored in black and red, swept into the ruins. They moved with precision, killing with practiced ease. The Kelleran scattered. Screams tore through the camps. Elias barked orders. Shields up. Get civilians inside. Engineers, hold. The perimeter. Human technology was not the most advanced in the galaxy, but it was stubborn. The shield emitters flickered to life, throwing a crackling barrier around the camp. Dominion fire hammered it, but the barrier held. Koresh stared at Elias in shock. You came with no army, no fleet, and yet you stand? Elias drew his sidearm, the old model still scarred from another war. We stand because someone has. 2. The Dominion commander stepped forward, his voice amplified through speakers. Humans, he called, leave the Kelleran to their fate. This is not your fight. Walk away, and we will not hunt you. Elias's jaw tightened. He thought of the child who had clung to him. He thought of the burning cities below. He thought of the silence that had followed their desperate cry. He raised his weapon. Not a chance. The camp erupted into war god asterisk the weight of fire. The Dominion's first assault hit like thunder. Their machines were tall, spider-like walkers, each step sending tremors through the scorched earth. Their cannons spat streams of molten fire, hammering against the human shield wall. The barrier rippled with each impact, bending almost to breaking. Inside the shield, chaos boiled. Kelleran civilians screamed as explosions shook the ground. Human. Engineers scrambled at their stations, shouting numbers, rerouting power, patching circuits with their bare hands. Elias Ward moved through it all, voice cutting through panic. Medic teams, hold your ground. Civilians in the inner zone, now. Don't let them bunch near the shield wall, spread them out. Engineers, I need every watt pushed to those emitters. Sacrifice life support if you have to. One of the medics, a wiry woman named Dr. Tessa Holt, snapped her head up. That gives us 6 hours of air if we're sealed in, Commander. Elias's scarred hand tightened on his sidearm. Then we'd better make this fight last less than 6. Koresh stood frozen at the edge of the inner camp, eyes locked on the Dominion walkers. He had fought before, but never like this. Never. With enemies who carved through entire cities in hours, who reduced proud towers into ash dot, the Kelleran fought with ceremony, with ritual, with precision. But here, humanity fought with something else, something jagged, rough, and UNPOLISHE.ingenuity.KAREC saw it in the way Elias barked orders, in how humans threw themselves at problems with reckless abandon. Circuits were patched with scraps. Power cells, cannibalized from one system, were shoved into another. Shields that should have collapsed in minutes held. This is impossible, Koresh whispered. Dr. Holt glanced at him as she rushed past, cradling a wounded Kelleran child. That's what people usually say, right before Elias pulls a miracle out of scrap metal. Outside, the Dominion pushed harder. *1. Walker charged forward, legs stabbing into the ground like spears. Its cannon burned white as it fired point-blank into the barrier. The shield, shattered. A hole yawned open in the defense wall. Through it, Dominion soldiers surged, armored shadows, wielding jagged rifles that spat red beams. Breach! Elias roared. Human volunteers rushed to plug the gap, firing old model coil guns and plasma pistols. Kelleran civilians scattered, some trampled in the crush. Elias sprinted toward the breach, dragging Koresh with him. Stay low. Follow my lead. He dove into the fight. The battle turned savage. Elias slammed into the first Dominion soldier, driving a knife under the alien's armor plating. Sparks burst as the soldier screamed, falling back into his comrades. Elias ripped the rifle free and fired down the line, cutting through another two. Koresh moved beside him, though his hands shook. He was not a warrior. But when a Dominion trooper leveled a rifle at Elias's back, Koresh snatched up a shard of broken metal and hurled it with all his strength. The shard embedded in the trooper's exposed throat. The alien collapsed, choking on its own blood. Elias glanced at Koresh. Not bad. Remind me never to argue with you in a scrap. The Kelleran just stared at his blood-slick hands. I killed him. You saved lives, Elias growled, shoving him toward cover. That's what matters. The fighting raged for what felt like hours. Each time the Dominion breached, the humans adapted. They rerouted shield energy, improvised weapons from spare parts, even wired old mining charges into makeshift bombs. Asterisk and the Kelleran watched. They had never seen war fought this way. To them, battle was about discipline, form, and tradition. But here was humanity, throwing away all rules, inventing solutions on the fly, and surviving. For the first time, Koresh felt a sliver of something he hadn't felt in weeks, that hope that at last. The Dominion withdrew. The walkers pulled back, their legs carrying them into the smoke. The soldiers retreated in formation, dragging their dead with them. Asterisk, the battlefield fell silent, broken only by the crackle of fires. Humans rushed to tend the wounded. Dr. Holt barked orders, setting up triage stations. Engineers staggered back to their posts, sweat pouring down their faces. Elias leaned against a shattered barricade, chest heaving. His arm throbbed an old scar torn open again. He pressed a cloth against it and looked at Koresh. They'll be back, Elias said. His voice was flat, certain, stronger next time. Koresh's crystalline eyes glimmered. Then why fight? Why throw yourselves against them when you have no hope of winning? Elias turned his gaze to the camp, the children curled against their mothers, the wounded laid out on stretchers, the weary. Survivors staring at him with fragile trust. Because they asked, Elias said simply, and because no one else came. That night, Koresh sat alone near the fire, watching humans patch wounds with thread, rebuild shields with scraps, and share their food even though rations were thin. The Kelleran had once believed themselves advanced, beyond all others masters of art, science, and diplomacy. Yet here they were, brought low by the Dominion, their proud fleets shattered, their cities burned, and the only ones who came were these scarred, reckless creatures from the distant blue world. Koresh whispered to the fire, "What are you really?" The answer came the next morning. Dawn had barely broken when scouts returned. In panic, "The Dominion," they cried. "Not just soldiers. Warships. They're moving on this sector. Thousands." The Dauntless was a medical frigate. A single ship. No fleet, no reinforcements. Koresh felt his blood run cold. He turned to Elias. "You cannot fight that. No one can." Elias stared at the horizon, where black smoke already curled higher. He was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at Koresh. His eyes steel. "Then we don't fight them head on. We change the rules." The enemy's shadow the ground shook long before the ships appeared. From the Kelleran hills to the broken plains, the earth quivered as Dominion troop transports carved their way through the skies. Sleek, black shapes blotted out the sun, there. Engines screaming. The air reeked of burning ozone, and every shadow seemed to carry death. Koresh stood on the ridge beside Elias, his crystalline eyes reflecting the swarm of incoming ships. His voice was hollow. "They are not coming for us. They are coming for you." Elias frowned, not looking away from the horizon. "Explain." Koresh's jaw tightened. "The Dominion wanted our people crushed, yes. But their hate what drives them is fear. Fear of anything that does not kneel. You humans answered our cry for help. You stood against them, and you did not fall. Now you have become a symbol. And symbols they destroy with fire." Elias let out a dry laugh. "So, saving people paints a target on our backs." Story of humanity's life. Back at the camp, the human crew worked like possessed. Shield emitters hummed, patched with scavenged components. Coil guns were rebuilt from mining rigs. Tripwires were strung, hidden under dirt. Even children were given simple tasks carrying water, hauling, scraps, passing messages. Every hand mattered now. Dr. Tessa Holt slammed a datapad on a crate. "We've got too many wounded and not enough meds. If the Dominion hits hard again, we won't hold." Elias studied her face. She hadn't slept in 2 days. None of them had. "Then we won't let them hit us the same way twice," he said. That evening, Koresh approached Elias quietly. "My people, we are not blind. I know what you are doing. You build traps. You twist our land, make it into a weapon. This is not how we fight." Elias glanced at him. "How you fought hasn't worked, has it?" Koresh flinched as if struck. Elias softened. "Listen, back on Earth, we learned the hard way. Wars weren't won by honor or tradition. They were won by survival, by turning whatever you had into something the enemy didn't expect." He tapped the hilt of his battered knife. "This was once a farming blade. Saved my life more times than a rifle." Koresh's throat tightened. "You humans, you break every rule. Even your rules. That's why we're still here." Elias met his eyes. "And why you will be too if you trust us." The Dominion struck at dawn. Asterisk. Their ships darkened the sky, raining soldiers in waves. But this time, the humans were ready. As the first walkers crossed the plain, mines hidden under rubble detonated, blowing their legs apart. Trenches collapsed, swallowing squads whole. Rigged fuel cells ignited in fireballs that tore through Dominion lines. The Caloran gasped as the battlefield itself came alive, shifting and screaming like a living trap. Elias moved through it all like a conductor, voice steady over comms. "Sector 3, drop the barricade. Holt, detonate charge 4 now. Koresh, get your people out of that kill zone before it goes hot." Koresh obeyed before he realized it. For the first time, he was part of the chaos, part of this strange, human way of war. His people followed him, stunned but alive, as Dominion troops were shredded by ingenuity they could not predict. But the Dominion adapted quickly. A massive shadow blotted the camp. One of their warships descended low, engines shaking the ground. Its underside split open, revealing a weapon that hummed with sickening energy. Dr. Holt screamed over comms. "That's a planetary sweeper. One shot and everything inside this valley is gone," Elias cursed. They had nothing that could take down a ship of that size. And then Koresh spoke, voice trembling but resolute. "The Dominion is not careless. They would not bring such a weapon here unless this place mattered more than we understood. Elias, they fear something here." Elias's eyes narrowed. "Not just fear us? No, something older. Something buried." That night, Koresh told him the truth. Long ago, before the Dominion rose, the Kelleran had built something deep within these hills. A power source, alive and endless. They had sealed it away, swearing never to use it. To do so would defy their traditions, their sacred laws. But the Dominion knew. That was why they had come to this world with such fury. not to erase the Kelran, but to claim what lay hidden. Elias listened in silence. When Koresh finished, Elias said only one thing. Can it be turned into a weapon? Koresh recoiled. You cannot. It is forbidden. We swore. Koresh. Elias's voice was steel. Look around you. Your traditions didn't stop the Dominion. Your cities burned anyway. But maybe, just maybe, this thing you're afraid of could save lives. Koresh's hands shook. You ask me too. Betray everything my people stand for. Elias leaned closer. His eyes were tired, haunted. No, I'm asking you to make sure they still stand at all. Koresh could not sleep. He walked the camp as humans worked under floodlights, welding, stitching wounds, adjusting shields. They fought not because of tradition, not because of duty, but because people needed them. Because a child had cried, and they had answered. He stopped near the little girl who had once clung to Elias. She slept now, curled against her mother, her chest rising and falling. Koresh whispered to himself, what good is tradition if she never wakes again? By dawn, his mind was decided. He went to Elias, voice steady though his heart pounded. The power is buried beneath the valley. I can take you there. But once we open it, there is no going back. The Dominion will know. They will come with everything. They have. Elias gave a tired smile. Good. Let them. Far above, in the dark belly of a Dominion warship, Commander Saren watched the valley through a burning red holoscreen. His claws tapped the armrest in frustration. The humans were not supposed to matter. One ship, one crew, it should have been. Nothing. But instead, they had become a thorn, a rallying point. He hissed to his aide. Send word to the fleet. This is no longer an extermination. It is a cleansing. Burn the valley. Burn the humans. Leave nothing. His aide hesitated. And if the Kelran power is destroyed in the fire? Saren's eyes gleamed. Then we lose nothing except a threat we should have crushed long ago. In the valley below, Elias, Koresh, and a team of humans prepared to descend into the sealed caverns. They carried lanterns, weapons, and fear at the mouth of the cavern. Koresh paused. The ancient seal still glimmered faintly with Kelran runes. His people had sworn never to break it. Elias touched his shoulder. You don't have to go in. Koresh shook his head. No, if I don't, I'll never be able to face them again. Or myself. Together, they stepped into the dark. The price of trust. The cavern breathed like a living thing. As Elias and Koresh descended. The walls glowed faintly, veins of blue light pulsing beneath the stone. The deeper they went, the warmer the air grew, until sweat ran down Elias's back, and Koresh's crystalline eyes burned like molten glass. At last, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The heart of Kerith lay before them, a crystal monolith rising from the cavern floor, taller than a skyscraper. It pulsed with slow, rhythmic light, as though it had a heartbeat. Each pulse sent ripples of energy across the walls, humming through Elias's bones. Koresh fell to his knees. The core. His voice was reverent and afraid all at once. Forged by our ancestors. Not a weapon, not truly. A living star bound in crystal. Elias approached, his scarred hand brushing the air near its surface. The hum vibrated up his arm. It's power, he said. And power can be shaped. Koresh rose sharply. You do not understand? To unseal it is to bind yourself. It is not a tool that chooses who may touch it. Many have tried. Most were destroyed. Elias glanced at him. Then we don't try. We build around it. My people are good at that. Back in the camp, Dr. Holt slammed her fists against the medical tent's table. You're telling me he's dragging our commander into an unstable alien reactor that eats people alive? The engineer beside her, A burly man named Ortega shrugged grimly. Sounds like Ward. He's the kind who'd wrestle the sun if it meant buying us 5 more minutes. Minutes don't save lives, Holt hissed. Supplies do. Medicine does. Reinforcements do. And we don't have any of those. Ortega lowered his voice. Then maybe we need to put our faith in something we don't understand. Something bigger than us. Holt stared at him, torn between fury and despair. She hated relying on miracles. Miracles always came too late. In the caverns. Elias studied the core with an engineer's eye. Koresh, he said slowly, what if we don't? Use it as a weapon directly? What if we tap it as a power source? We could feed it into the shield grid, amplify the emitters 100-fold, maybe even project a field strong enough to fry their ships. Koresh's hands trembled. That is heresy. Our laws didn't stop the Dominion from torching your cities. Elias cut in, his voice rough. How many of your people died while you kept those laws? Koresh's face twisted in pain. His traditions were all he had left, yet Elias's words dug deep. Cruel, but true God at last. Koresh whispered, if we awaken it, we cannot control what it becomes. Elias looked him dead in the eyes. Then we learn fast. High above the valley, Dominion Commander Saren watched the chaos unfold through his holoscreens. He had expected resistance. He had not expected this feral ingenuity. The humans had turned traps and rubble into weapons. Worse, they had forced the Kelran to rally again, something no Dominion terror campaign had managed. Saren snarled. They are insects. Filthy, reckless. Insects. His aide bowed. Insects that bleed you, Commander. Shall we deploy the purge bomb? Saren's claws drummed the armrest. The purge bomb would scour the valley clean, reducing everything humans, Kelran, even the core to ash. But if the humans had already begun tapping it, no, he said at last, not yet. Let them taste false hope. Let them think they can stand. Then we crush them in front of everyone watching. The galaxy must see resistance as death. That night, the camp whispered with fear. Kelran elders confronted Koresh, their voices sharp and trembling. You broke the oath, one hissed. You led them to the core. You have doomed us all. Koresh stood his ground, though his insides twisted. I saved us. Would you rather kneel while the Dominion grinds our bones into dust? The elder spat at his feet. Better to die with honor than live in shame. Before Koresh could answer, Elias stepped forward. His voice was steady, dangerous. Honor doesn't feed your children. It doesn't shield your homes. Survival does. You can hate me all you want, but when the Dominion comes tomorrow, it'll be our work down there that keeps you breathing. Kelran stared at him, stunned by the bluntness. Some looked away, ashamed. Others seethed. Koresh realized, with a sick twist in his chest, that by choosing to help Elias, he had made himself an outcast among his own. The next day was worse. Dominion launched a false retreat, pulling their ships back over the horizon. Scouts reported movement far beyond the hills. Some Kelran cheered, thinking victory was near, but Elias knew better. His gut churned. They're not running. They're repositioning. They want us to relax. Dr. Holt grabbed his arm. Then, what are we waiting for? If they're regrouping, we need to move civilians out now, before the hammer falls. Elias's jaw clenched. He looked at the exhausted families, the wounded lying under tarps, the children too weak to walk. They couldn't move fast enough. Not all of them. He met Holt's eyes. We can't run. We make our stand here. Holt stared at him, fury in her eyes. And when they come with everything, Elias? When your clever tricks run out, what then? Elias swallowed. Then we hold long enough for the galaxy to notice. long enough to prove that the Dominion can be resisted. Koresh heard him and understood. This wasn't just about Kelrith anymore. Humanity was making a statement with blood. That evening, they gathered in the cavern again. Ortega and his engineers wired conduits from the core to portable generators. The crystal pulsed brighter with every connection, its hum growing louder, deeper, until the whole chamber VIBR ADD.KAREC laid a hand on its surface. The core flared, recognizing him. Energy surged through the cables, racing toward the surface. The shield emitters screamed alive, their barriers glowing 10 times brighter than before. For the first time, the camp shimmered with hope, but the core did not rest. Its pulses grew faster, stronger, almost frantic. The cavern walls trembled. Koresh staggered back, eyes wide. It is not just power, it is awakening. Elias clenched his teeth. Then we ride the storm, or we die in it. Far above, Dominion Commander Saren smiled as reports came in. The humans tethered themselves to the core. His aide confirmed. The Kelleran traditions are broken. They defile their own heritage. Saren's claws tapped together. Good. They dig their own graves. Prepare the purge bomb. Let the galaxy watch as their so-called defiance burns in sacred fire. The aide hesitated. But Commander, what if the core resists? Saren bared his fangs. Then the humans will destroy themselves. Either way, they prove my point. In the valley, Elias stood over the humming shield grid, sweat dripping down his face. He looked at Holt, Ortega, and Koresh. We've pushed them. They'll come. Hard, harder than before. We're about to find out if we built a shield, or lit our own funeral pyre. The night air vibrated as Dominion warships ignited their engines, their shadows spreading across the stars. The cleansing strike had begun. Asterisk. When steel breaks, the night sky split open. From the heavens, the Dominion descended in force warships, blotting out the stars, their engines howling like a storm of demons. Red fire poured from their cannons, hammering the valley with relentless fury. The humans in Kelleran huddled under their shield, the core's energy surging through the grid. The barrier flared bright, holding back torrents of plasma that would have reduced everything to ash. But every strike made it scream louder. Ortega shouted over the din, hands gripping the power console. Shields are peaking. We're running. Hot enough to fry the grid. Elias's voice was stone. Hold, as long as it takes. The barrier blazed against the night. It was beautiful, a dome of light resisting the dark. But beauty could not mask the truth. The Dominion had more ships, more guns, more fire. Steel breaks, no matter how strong. On the ridges, Dominion walkers advanced, their legs pounding like war drums. Soldiers in black armor poured down the slopes in rivers of crimson light. The valley became a furnace of fire and smoke. Dr. Holt dragged the wounded into the inner zone, barking orders with a throat gone raw. She moved without rest, her hands soaked in blood. If they breach that shield, we're finished, she muttered through gritted teeth. Asterisk Koresh fought beside Elias at the barricades. His arms ached, his body screamed, but he kept going. For every Dominion soldier he cut down, 2 more came. Yet beside him, Elias never faltered. The human commander fought like a storm. His knife flashed, his sidearm barked, his voice never wavered. Every order steadied the panicked. Every strike reminded the Kelleran that they were not beaten yet. Koresh thought, this man bleeds like us, fears like us, yet he stands against the impossible. What are humans made of? Asterisk above them, the Dominion. Flagship hovered, its belly opening wide. From within, a vast sphere of black metal emerged. The purge bomb dot, it pulsed with crimson veins, hungry, alive. When it fell, there would be nothing left. No camp, no core, no survivors. Koresh's blood ran cold. It's here, Elias. If they drop that, it's over. Elias wiped soot from his face, eyes hard. Then we don't let them drop it. The core screamed. Its crystal heart pulsed wildly. Surges of energy tearing through the conduits. Generators exploded, sending engineers sprawling. The cavern shook as if the earth itself was crying out. Koresh staggered. It cannot hold much longer. Elias grabbed his shoulder. Then we. Stop holding. We push back. He barked into comms. Ortega, reroute the core's surge to the shield emitters. Forget containment, turn it into a weapon. Ortega's voice broke with disbelief. Commander, that much energy. Do it. Elias roared. The shield flared brighter than the sun. Then it detonated outward. Asterisk, a wave of raw, blinding energy burst from the camp, slamming into the Dominion ranks. Walkers shattered like glass. Soldiers were hurled screaming into the air. Warships reeled, their shields buckling under the onslaught. The valley itself shook under the force. For a moment, silence followed, then cheers. Human and Kelleran voices rose together, ragged but fierce. They had struck back. They had made the Dominion bleed, but the victory was fragile. The core dimmed, cracks spiderwebbing through its crystal surface. Koresh's voice trembled. We have awoken it too far. It cannot be controlled. Elias stared at the dying glow, his gut twisted. Then we have one shot left to end this. In orbit, Commander Saren reeled as his flagship shook under the core's backlash. Alarms. Screamed. Officers scrambled, but Saren's fury burned hotter than fear. Asterisk. Fools, he hissed. They think power makes them strong. But power without control is a curse. He turned to his aide. Prepare the purge bomb for release. End this before they learn the truth. The aide hesitated. Commander, their strike disrupted our fleet. We lost more ships in one blast than in 100 battles. If the core can do this again, Saren's claws lashed across the aide's face. Blood spattered the floor. Do not speak of if. It cannot. It will devour them as it devours all who touch it. But deep inside, Saren knew the truth. The humans had forced the Dominion to bleed, and that terrified him more than the core. On the ground, Elias staggered through smoke and rubble. He found Holt binding a Kelleran child's wounds, her hands trembling with exhaustion. Doc, Elias said, his voice hoarse. How long can you keep this up? She looked up, eyes hollow. As long as they keep breathing. Her answer made him smile, weary but proud. Humanity had always kept going until there was nothing left. Koresh stumbled to them, his armor scorched, his face cut. Elias, the purge bomb. It descends. Elias's blood turned to ice. He looked skyward. The massive sphere fell slowly, its surface glowing crimson. It cast a shadow across the valley like an eclipse. Everyone, Elias shouted, fall back to the caverns now. The refugees surged toward the cavern mouth, but the Dominion pressed in, trying to cut them off. Elias, Holt, Koresh, and Ortega stood in the gap, firing until their weapons overheated, cutting down soldiers to buy seconds. Every heartbeat was a battle. Every step was paid for in blood. Koresh's blade shattered. Holt took a grazing shot to the leg, but refused to stop moving. Ortega dragged wounded Kelleran with one hand while firing with the other. And Elias, stood like a wall, every strike of his knife a promise, every gunshot a vow. You will not have them. They reached the cavern, the core glowing dim but still alive. The air hummed with unstable energy. Koresh turned to Elias. If we feed it every generator, every cell it could unleash one final strike. Enough to destroy the purge bomb, and us with it. Elias didn't hesitate. Do it. Holt grabbed his arm. Elias, if you do this, you won't make it out. He looked at her, then at the refugees huddled behind them, at the children clutching their mothers, at Koresh, torn between fear and faith. Better us than them, he said softly. Koresh's voice broke. Why? Why would you give everything for people who are not your own? Elias met his gaze, because someone cried for help. And we heard. The core pulsed one last time. The humans in Kelran poured every scrap of energy into it. Lights flickered out. Shields died. The camp went black. The crystal screamed. Then it exploded upward in a torrent of light, a pillar of energy spearing the heavens. The purge bomb met the strike head-on. For one endless second, the sky became a sun. Then the bomb shattered, consumed in fire. The Dominion fleet reeled, crippled, their formation collapsing. The valley fell silent, the core now dark and broken. Elias collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, vision swimming. The humans were alive. The Kelran were alive, but the Dominion was not beaten yet. Their fleet still hung above, regrouping Dot, and Elias realized with cold dread. Their sacrifice had bought survival. But not victory. Asterisk, the last answer smoke, still hung over the valley. The core was silent now, its crystal cracked and lifeless. The shield grid lay in ruins. The last of the campfires flickered weakly as wounded and refugees clung to life. Elias stood at the cavern mouth, his hands trembling, his body near collapse. He had nothing left to give, but the Dominion still darkened the sky. Their fleet drifted above, wounded yet vast, regrouping for the killing stroke. The valley whispered defeat. Koresh limped to Elias's side, blood staining his armor. His voice was hoarse. We destroyed the purge bomb. That should have broken them. Elias shook his head slowly. It scared them. But fear isn't enough. They'll come again. Holt joined them, leaning on Ortega's shoulder. Her face was pale, lips cracked, yet her eyes still burned. We can't take another assault. If they drop fire again, this is over. Silence fell. The Kelran refugees stared at Elias. Children pressed against their parents. Warriors clenched broken weapons. All of them looked to him. A human. Elias forced himself to stand straighter. They're hiding something. The Dominion isn't unstoppable. They're terrified of the core. That's why they wanted it gone. Not for conquest, but because it could end them. Koresh's eyes widened. You believe it is their weakness? I know it is, Elias said. We saw it one surge, shattered their fleet. They're strong when they control the fight. But when you strike where they fear most, they break, Ortega frowned. But the core's dead. We can't hit them again. Elias looked skyward, at the wounded Dominion ships drifting like predators circling prey. Then we don't need the core. We use their own fear against them. Hours later, under cover of smoke and night, Elias led a small strike team himself. Koresh, Ortega, and Holt up the ridge. Below, the valley lay quiet, the refugees hidden in the caves. Above, Dominion dropships scoured the mountains. Their target loomed ahead. A disabled Dominion cruiser, half buried after the core's last blast. Its engine smoked, its hull torn, but its command system still flickered with power. Koresh whispered, You mean to steal that? Elias smiled grimly. Not steal, broadcast. Inside, the wreck stank of burnt flesh and scorched metal. Dominion corpses slumped against walls, their armor still glowing faintly from plasma burns. The humans moved fast, clearing corridors, planting charges, forcing doors. Koresh followed, unsettled by the ease with which they moved through death. He watched Elias pry open a console with his bare hands, sparks biting his skin, and thought, This man should be broken. But he refuses to fall. At last, they reached the command deck. Screens flickered weakly, Dominion symbols scrolling across them. The ship's long-range comms still pulsed with life. Elias, wiped blood from his face. "Ortega, can you patch this thing?" The engineer grinned despite exhaustion. "Give me 10 minutes and a prayer." "You've got 5, Elias muttered as Ortega worked. Holt stood guard at the shattered viewport. She stared at the Dominion fleet hanging above like carrion birds. "Even if we send a signal," she said, "what difference will it make?" Elias answered without looking up. "Truth, they've ruled with fear. But fear only holds until someone shows it can bleed. We show the galaxy what happened here, the core, the purge bomb. Their losses, they'll know the Dominion can be beaten." Koresh frowned. "You would risk everything on a story?" Elias finally met his gaze. His voice was steel. "Stories are what armies are built on. And this one's true." Ortega slammed a fist on the console. "We're live." Elias leaned over the mic. His voice carried raw and unshaken. "This is Commander Elias Vance of Earth. To every world within reach of this broadcast, the Dominion tried to purge the Kelran. They failed. They unleashed their fleet against us. They failed. They dropped their purge bomb, and we destroyed it." His voice grew harder. "They want you to believe they're unbreakable. But look at the sky. Their ships burn. Their soldiers bleed. They are not gods. They are tyrants, and tyrants fall." Static hissed, then clarity returned. "If you hear this, rise. For your people, for the free, for every cry they tried to silence." Humanity answered, and we are not alone. The signal spread. Across occupied Kelran cities, Dominion soldiers froze as holoscreens lit up with Elias's face. Across distant colonies, whispers spread like fire. In hidden resistance cells, fists clenched and eyes brightened. The Dominion could not stop the truth. Saren, aboard his flagship, watched in fury as the broadcast flooded every channel. His claws tore through the armrest. "Cut it!" He roared. His aides scrambled, but the signal kept spreading, leaping from one node to the next, unstoppable. Saren hissed. "Human filth. They think words win wars." Yet deep down, even he felt it, the weight of fear shifting. The Dominion fleet descended in rage. Dropships poured fire across the ridges. Walkers thundered through the smoke. Soldiers charged, shrieking. In the wrecked cruiser, alarms blared. Ortega shouted, "They're locking on us." Elias turned to the others. "Time to make this count. Koresh, detonate the charges. Bring the ship down with us if we have to." Koresh blinked. "That would kill us all." Elias gave a grim smile. "Then let's make sure it's worth it." The Dominion broke through the wreck's hull. Soldiers swarmed inside, black armor gleaming, weapons spitting fire. Holt took cover behind a console, gunning down attackers until her rifle jammed. Ortega lobbed grenades, blowing corridors into firestorms. Koresh wielded scavenged blades, cutting down enemies with feral strength. And Elias fought at the front, his knife flashing, his pistol booming, his voice carrying over the chaos. They pushed deeper, wave after wave, the wreck becoming a tomb. Then the earth shook. Asterisk from the cavern below. A new sound rose, a thunder of voices. The Kelran refugees had taken up arms. Spurred by the broadcast, emboldened by humanity's stand, they poured from the caves in a tide of fury. Farmers, mothers, children barely grown, they came wielding scavenged rifles, makeshift blades, even stones. Their cry shook the valley. "Free! Free!" Asterisk, the Dominion staggered under the wave. Their formations shattered. Their fear, once their greatest weapon, now belonged to their enemies. On the flagship, Saren realized the truth too late. The humans had not just survived. They had ignited rebellion. Worlds would rise. Fleets would fracture. The Dominion's reign was already crumbling. And the named humanity would be carried with every whisper, every shout. They answered. In the valley, Elias collapsed against a wall, bleeding, exhausted. Holt knelt beside him, tears cutting streaks through the dirt on her face. "You did it," she whispered. Elias's eyes fluttered open. He looked at Koresh, at Ortega, at the Conan warriors still fighting, still standing. "No," he rasped. "We did it." Koresh knelt beside him, gripping his hand tight. His voice broke with emotion. "You came when no one else would. You gave more than we deserved. And for that, Elias Vance, we will never forget humanity." Elias managed a tired grin. "Just promise me one thing." Koresh leaned close. "Anything. Next time someone cries for help, answer." Dawn broke. The Dominion ships retreated, broken and burning. The valley stood scarred, but alive. And across the stars, a message echoed louder than any weapon. They cried to humanity and got more than they expected. Not just soldiers, not just survivors, but allies, builders, dreamers, fighters, and humanity had only just begun. Asterisk.